The Toddcast podcast on toddhancock.ca.
Hey.
Todd Kerns, Todd Hancock.
Todd.
Todd. Nice to meet you, Todd. Nice to see you. What's going on, dude?
Not much. How are you?
I'm good, man. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So thank
Glad
you
to hear it.
for taking some time out of your busy schedule to be a guest again.
Anytime.
It seems like once a year we're kind of getting things together and doing something. And by the way, that Took show at the Railway last month and a bit back was fantastic. Did you know Weekend?
Oh, I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it. Yeah, that was
so fun.
It was so crazy having Paul Dean from Loverboy there and
Right.
John Donnelly from the Queen City Kids, Barry Connors from Coney Hatch and Toronto. We just had so many people get up on stage and play with us. It was so much fun.
Dude, I walked in with the guys from Theory of a Dead Man, and we all looked at each other and went, Brent Fitz isn't playing the drums? What's going on?
I know, yeah. Everybody says that. They're like, because once in a while people will be like, okay, so what is Shane Gallus like the drummer of Shane Gallus? So
right.
What's he playing in the band? And I go, he's playing drums. What the hell is Fitz playing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's playing bass. Yeah.
Fitz
is like, we're currently doing the Slash record right now, and he's tomorrow playing keyboards on, a handful of songs on the record. So, he's, pretty versatile in a number of areas.
Well, didn't he also play bass on a tour when you had a detached retina or something, or were coming back? Or
Yes. Yeah, it was in Russia, in Moscow. We went to Moscow, and I was sent back because of this detached retina. So he played bass, and our drum tech played drums for 2 shows. It was Moscow and St. Petersburg.
Yeah, just super impressed with the set, dude, for the Took. I mean, and how it was just so tight. It's just such a fun band.
Dude, it's it all starts as, I'm in Los Angeles right now, which is funny because it started as driving around with Corey Churko, listening to Queen City Kids and Street Hard and stuff like that as you're driving around Hollywood, and you're thinking to yourself, it's just so weird listening to this music that we grew up on in such a out of context place, you know what I mean? And I kept saying how good this music is, but none of these people, looking around at the cars around us, none of these people would know what this is. So it started as kind of like a gag, wouldn't it be cool to record some of this stuff and do it as a tribute, as an homage to the bands that we grew up on that are, such a regional thing for us. As you know, as a Canadian, there's music that is really special to us that just doesn't translate in other territories just simply by, it's just they never had the chance to really get down there or whatever. So, a song like Raise a Little Hell by Trooper is a classic, and I think the whole purpose was, well, we'll record that song and prove that it's a classic in, Sao Paulo and in Tokyo and Osaka.
Yeah. And have you guys thought about, all right, guys, we need to think of the next few songs that we're going to record. And
we recorded a second album and it's finished. So, but that said, it's sort of we could probably do this for 10 albums and never run out of stuff
and never run out
to do. No, that's part of the fun of it has been kind of the first one was sort of it's the first time we're going to do it, and we dug really deep with stuff like Queen City Kids and a band called Orphan from Winnipeg, and Street Heart and bands like that are really near and dear to us. The 3 of us are from the prairies. I'm from Saskatchewan. Corey Churko's from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and Fitz is, of course, from Winnipeg. And the drummer, Shane, is from Innisfail, Alberta. So it's all prairie folk. So stuff like, Harlequin and all that kind of stuff was near and dear to us. But we stretched out. We had Loverboy and Kim Mitchell and songs like that on the first album. And this one is, it's more of the same but completely different. We just did some different stuff. And I don't want to give too much away because we haven't released it yet. So it's,
right.
We even recorded one of our own songs on it too, actually. We wrote a song and recorded it. And so it's it's what started off as kind of a gag. There wasn't really ever supposed to be, I don't know if we ever really intended to ever play gigs. It was just sort of wouldn't that be fun? Mm-hmm. Corey happens to have his own studio, and he's a pretty happening producer himself. So
right. And for people that don't know, Corey Churko plays with Shania Twain and Clarkson?
That's correct, yeah.
Wow. Big players.
Yeah. So, it's funny because that's what it sort of started off as, is us living in the U.S. being, Canadian. It just sort of had this, would it be cool to be kind of like an ambassador to Canadian music some degree, and I think that, in its own way, it really has proven to be that, where people from like South America or Australia or Asia are saying, I really like this song, or whatever from the Took record, and it means the world to me that they would never probably have heard that song had we not kind of, presented it.
Put a bit of light on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of it's because it's certainly it's a regional thing, but it's also it's a geographical thing, but it's also it's some of those songs are from the 80s and some of them are from the 70s, and those, some of those things get lost in time anyway. But it feels good to have been a part of something, continue to be a part of something that's, sort of bringing attention to some of that music that we grew up on and that we love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We've done, I don't know how many interviews over the years. It's got to be half a dozen or so. And this summer, I kind of wanted to do something different that we've never done before. And I want it to be just questions from your fans, and nothing but. Not that I'm not a fan, but
okay.
When I mentioned that you were going to be a guest for the third time now, there's more than enough questions that aren't mine to do this interview, and some are pretty damn good. So
interesting.
I want to do Chris's question first, only in that you guys are right now recording the new Slash and the Conspirators record. He says, with all the amazing talent in the band, why is it still called Slash and the Conspirators featuring Miles Kennedy? Did they run out of band names?
Well, I think that the biggest reason for all of that is because it started off as just Slash in 2010. His solo album was just called Slash. Mm. He just called the project Slash, and we came in as the guys to augment the sound and then to be able to play the songs live. And of course, the singer's name was Miles Kennedy. So essentially, I mean, what started off as, it's funny, in a similar way, all of these things, whether it's Took or Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators, these things all start off as kind of like, wouldn't that be interesting? And then the next thing you know, it's still going on 8 years later. So I think that the all of that stuff, the Conspirators thing is a funny afterthought that kind of like, Slash put out a solo album with a bunch of singers. Chris Cornell was on that record, Lemmy, Iggy Pop,
Ozzy.
Ozzy, Ian Astbury from the Cult, and including Miles Kennedy. So when Miles and him started to talk about, let's try and take this thing out on the road, then it became, Slash featuring Miles Kennedy. And we were some guys that, were there to play. And to be honest with you, 100% honest, at the time I was never sure if that was kind of like, like a few months of like flyouts on weekends and, appear on a few TV shows to kind of promote the thing. And then it'd been like high five, good game, and see you later. Right. But that went on for, a year and a half. And Slash said, hey, I want to do a new record and with the band, with you guys. And I was kind of like, great. And then that's when they tagged on the name The Conspirators, so it became like, so basically it was already Slash featuring Miles Kennedy. So, but he wanted, to Slash's credit, he wanted it to be, he really, really sort of functions best as a band. But we already established ourselves as something, so it just seemed to make sense to just kind of tag the name onto it, Mm-hmm. And I think that's really sort of, that's really sort of been our thing. We shortened it to SMKC with Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators.
Right. And, I'm seeing that like hashtag a lot actually online, which is cool.
Yeah, and what started off, like I said, is I wasn't sure if it was going to be a few months of flyouts, so suddenly it's 8 years later and we're doing this. 8 years, 8 years in April was it's mind-blowing to think that it went that long. We've been together longer than Velvet Revolver was together.
Wow.
So it's a fascinating thing to really, wrap your head around. By the time we get off the road, the band will have been together 9 years, pushing 10, once we finish the tour of this record,
Impressive.
So it's a weird thing to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting, considering all the things that have, there's been multiple Alter Bridge records released in there, and I've done a million things, and Slash did a Guns N' Roses reunion tour in the span of all that. So a lot of things have occurred during all that.
Mm-hmm. Sean's got a great one. F, kill, or marry? Jennifer Aniston, Beyonce, Katy Perry.
Oh, gosh. F, kill, or marry? What were they again? Beyonce? Beyonce probably seems marryable, I think, doesn't she?
Katy Perry.
F, and who's the other one? Yeah, because Beyonce does have probably the most cash, too, so I think I'd be a pretty good house husband.
Jennifer Aniston. Yeah, you'd be
Jennifer Aniston.
That's good.
Jennifer Aniston or Katy Perry? F kill. I gotta kill somebody? I gotta answer these questions with my wife staring at me right now, which is the best part of this. I don't really want to kill anybody. Do I have to kill them? I guess I would kill Katy Perry because I don't really know much about her. Mm-hmm. I guess I would have to F Jennifer Aniston because she's age appropriate.
All right, we got Jay writes in saying, how many light bulbs is he asked to change when visiting family members? Hashtag tall problems.
Tall problems. Most people know me. They wouldn't ask me to do anything electrical or anything manual at all because I'd probably just destroy their house. Definitely like tall guy things, getting things off of top shelves and whatnot. Sure, that happens.
Right. Jolene follows this up with saying, say how many Kern brothers does it take to screw in a light bulb? Alex has a great point here, Todd. He goes, how many times has he cloned himself so that he can keep as busy as he does? You are busy. You're one of the more busy musicians that I know of.
It's funny because somehow it all seems to work out. People always say that to me, and I always go, I don't know. When someone asks me, hey, you want to go do this? And I look at my calendar and I go, I'm available that week or that day or that, whatever it is. And I go, sure, it sounds like fun. Mm-hmm. And, I'm sort of from that school of just kind of say yes to everything that sounds like fun. And a lot of things sound like fun, frankly. So, and I this month alone, I'm coming out of doing the Slash record into doing a run with Dizzy Reed's band from Guns N' Roses, Hookers and Blow. And then I go to do a run with Raiding the Rockfall to show out of Vegas. We do this in Branson. Oh, and then I'm doing a Kiss Expo with the Bob and Bruce Kulick and Brent Fitz. Mm-hmm. And I have done this.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we did it on the Kiss Cruise in November, and it was insane.
Yeah.
So, it's like, boom, 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 and then I'm coming out to see you. So it's like, in the course of May, it's just like, 4 different projects in 1 month. But it keeps things interesting, and it keeps, like sometimes I'm playing bass, sometimes I'm singing, sometimes I'm playing guitar, and I think that really kind of keeps me sharp in a lot of ways, because it's, people always say to me, well, are you a bass player? Are you a guitar player? I kind of consider myself a musician, mm-hmm. I'm happy to do kind of whatever is required of me, and it keeps me sharp in multiple areas.
Mike says, if you could have only one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, man.
Tough question.
One food. Wow. That's a tough one. I guess
sushi.
Would you say pizza?
Pizza's a great call.
Yeah. You never get tired of that.
Not really.
I think we've all gotten tired of pizza, but no, I'll just go with pizza.
Craig says, how do you get that delicious flowing caramel into the caramel bar? Also, when are the Sin City Sinners coming up to Vancouver?
Oh, man. I don't know. I honestly, I get to Vancouver, I'm there quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, usually it's just doing a solo thing or whatnot, or we're eventually doing a Slash thing. So it's kind of sort of seems to be the main priority to go up there. But as far as the caramel bar, I don't know. That's an age-old
yeah, remember those old commercials? They were crazy, man.
I think that's up there with the pyramids. I don't think anybody's really figured that out.
It's aliens, Craig. It's aliens.
It's aliens, definitely.
Kent's got a great question. Do you remember the first time you heard GNR's Appetite for Destruction?
I do, because I went to Sam the Record Man or something, and I bought it on cassette. Mm-hmm. I'd read about it in a magazine, I don't even know what magazine it was, Faces or something like that. And it just said something like, this is the best album since Zeppelin 2 or something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I remember it being, whatever it said, it was the best album since whatever. And I remember thinking, that's pretty bold. But I do remember it rendering a lot of things, out of fashion and sort of invisible very quickly. I remember thinking, wow, these guys are really ahead of the curve. But, that record is so intense, and the language and the cursing and it's punk rock, but it's metal, but it's classic. You know what I mean? There's so many elements about that record that I think that people kind of probably don't understand quite as how, the way Nirvana came out and changed a lot of stuff. Appetite kind of did that too in its own way.
Totally.
It definitely rendered a lot of things kind of uncool really quickly.
Yeah, when it was released, it was going up against all the hair bands.
Yeah, a friend of mine tells the best story. He says he remembers seeing Guns N' Roses back in LA back in the day, and how he literally they watched Guns N' Roses play their set, and then afterwards him and his friends all went in the bathroom and started combing their hair down, their big poofy hair down, because that was immediately not cool, I guess. I was like, oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Puts it in perspective.
Right. June says, hey, did you ever find your remote control?
Mm-hmm. You know what's so funny? Back in the day, we used to do these signings, like record store signings and stuff like that, and kids would always, it was always probably like the most clever joke ever to come hand me their remote control. And yeah. I would always laugh because I probably got 5 a day, and I kept laughing to myself thinking, these people's parents are going to be pissed when they come home and where the hell's they'll be singing that song.
I love it that it, how many years ago did you release this song? It's still today.
97, dude.
I love it.
21 years ago. Yeah.
That's great. I'm not sure if we actually ever dug into your viewing habits too much on the podcast. What are you binge watching lately?
Binge watching wise, I think everything.
Really?
Generally, I love watching just shows, but I mean the ones the main ones that are that I watch don't necessarily need to be binged because they're things like Game of Thrones and Walking Dead and those sort of things. There's the weekly watches, but I binge pretty much everything. I mean, most of the Netflix shows that come out are all pretty decent quality overall, and a lot of them are some of my favorite stuff. It's a pretty interesting time to be it's like a renaissance of television, I suppose. I have friends I remember a friend saying to me recently, it's kind of changed going to movies for me, or even watching a movie, like a 90-minute story. It seems kind of weird now compared to watching 13 episodes of something and then waiting for the next thing and watch 13 episodes again. It's changed the entire game of how we take in our entertainment. And I go, that's so interesting, because I recently rewatched Breaking Bad in binge form. But at the initial time I'd watched it was a week by week, watching it as it was released. So it's interesting how quickly a show goes when you binge watch it, first of all. But it's also interesting to see how I can't believe I sat there and waited for 7 days for the next for that to wrap up. It's kind of because usually when you're binging a show, you're you get to the end of the episode and boom, you want to watch the next. What the hell happened, but
right. And then sometimes you'd even miss the next week or whatever. Back in the day when there was no PVR, and then, just have to get caught up. If you got a following week, I guess
you got a VHS, tape or something like that.
Your Betamax is rocking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
awesome. Caitlin goes, "How did you get into Rush?"
Rush. I'm Canadian.
That's funny. I think that's what I replied to her on the Facebook post. I said he's Canadian. If he's kind of got to.
Yeah, it's like the law.
Yeah.
It's funny because as a kid I was really into punk rock and rock, and I always had these friends that were really into Rush, and they were really obnoxious about the Ramones. They're terrible. Rush, that's real music, and you'd be and I would always have this sort of chip on my shoulder about these sort of sort of more elitist type bands, because they were it was you really actually had to be able to play and really had to actually be super proficient at your instrument. So it took me a minute to really kind of go that I always loved Rush for what they were, and I always loved them as a rock band and everything else, but it's been really interesting for me as a fan to be able to say I love such a wide variety of music that I can come back and appreciate Rush for. Actually, a lot of the most interesting thing about Rush is how unconventional they actually are. A lot of people think of them as some sort of if we just think of Rush and yeah Rush, then they're that thing, but it's there's nothing really conventional about Rush and why they should be as successful as they ended up being. They were really off the beaten path. The drummer wrote the lyrics. Their songs are, really crazy and challenging and really hard to play. But, that's how you build an audience, is by creating something so unique and something so interesting. And to me, I've been all over the world, and the one true consistency when you say you're from Canada is that people love Rush in Australia and Japan and South America. That, it's just like an ongoing, it's just like one of those things. It's the touchstone of Canadian music.
Interesting.
And Alex Lyson is an amazing dude. Hung out with him on a number of occasions, and he's just like the best guy ever.
Really?
Yeah, we never really met Neil. He was in the same room as us once, but he's not super approachable. I didn't want to freak him out, so I didn't say anything. And I've never met Geddy before, but I hear nothing but lovely things about him. That
doesn't surprise me. Marcy, she goes, what are you looking forward to more, Super Troopers 2 or Deadpool 2?
I would have to say Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for all that comic book stuff anyway. I'm like one of those guys who's been waiting his whole life, and if you would have told me there's going to be a Doctor Strange movie, I would have been like, what? Doctor Strange? Yeah. Who's putting the money up for Doctor Strange?
And an amazing Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently Disney is, I'm just kind of like, wow, I just can't believe that, that they're just like cranking out, Infinity War is coming out in a few days here.
62 characters or something like that? 62?
What? And a lot of them are A-list actors, a lot of them, like the dollar amount alone is like shocking. But I love that stuff. I'm like a big comic book nerd from way back, and sci-fi and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that they actually made a Deadpool movie and and then the fact that it was actually amazing is one of the great. Like, wow, I can't believe that happened.
I think that sequel might be better than the first.
I bet you it probably will be. I think they're probably the gloves are probably off. They probably like, well, we're not sure how this is going to go. But I mean, Ryan Reynolds is who is also Canadian, by the way.
Right.
He's such he's one of ours. Yeah. He's such a likable dude. And he nailed that thing, But that said, Super Troopers is fantastic. And a friend of mine, Clifton Collins, is a part of that gang. He's on Westworld and stuff like that. So, Westworld is another great show. But yeah, no, I'm excited about both of those. But I would say Deadpool for me.
I think so. Same for me. Rosie goes, Hey Todd, are there plans for a North American tour with Slash? If so, please know that you have fans in the MD-DCVA area. I'm front row for the Maryland, Baltimore tour for Miles Kennedy. Cool.
Oh, cool.
That's cool.
We were just talking the other day how I think we opened a tour or two tours maybe in Baltimore at a place called the Ram's Head, a smaller venue as kind of like a warm-up show, which is weird. We'll definitely be doing North America. I don't know. We're starting off with some festival dates in the fall, and then it'll eventually kind of spin into all that for sure. Yeah, and I mean we will definitely be in the Maryland area for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see why not.
Right on, Rosie.
The Heartland.
Gord says, where did the Todd Dammit Kerns come from? Did he stub his toe? By the way, the Tuke Railway show was awesome.
Oh, that's nice to hear. So the whole Dammit thing started as kind of a gag. I mean, like, do you know how, like, when you moved to Vancouver, or like you grew up there, but it's different for me. When I moved to Vancouver, it was like a big deal being like DOA, all those great bands that, the punk rock bands that came from Vancouver, and they all had great names. Joe Keithley, of course, was. Can we say it on your podcast?
Joey Shithead, yeah.
Joey Shithead, yeah, exactly. So everybody had Chuck Biscuits. All those guys had these punk rock names, which is all taken from like Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious, and you just sort of take your name and then add a cool last name to it. And Todd Dammit was always just one of those kind of like nicknames because it rhymes with God damn it. So it was just Todd Dammit, Toddzilla sometimes.
There you go.
And it just sort of hung around for since I was a kid for off and on. And then when I first came to Vegas, that's when it really kind of caught on, because the cool thing about it's totally an aside from all this, but the interesting thing about moving to Vegas, or I didn't really move to Vegas. I found myself in Vegas in a funny way. And the cool thing about going there was having this completely clean slate of, no one knew who Todd Kerns was. Do you know what I mean? Like in a funny way, no one knew who the Age of Electric was. So it was kind of like this fun starting from scratch. And that's when my friends started calling me Todd Dammit, because, or my new friends anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it just became kind of a tag name and a fun way to kind of like on stage, refer to myself as, and it just really kind of caught on. Guys like Vinnie Paul from Hell Yeah and Pantera, for the longest time he didn't know who Todd Kerns was. He would just go,
Awesome.
he would just go, Todd, damn it, he just like, in his like Yosemite Sam voice. But that whole thing is just sort of started as a gag, and then the bass player in my band at the time made a T-shirt that just said "Damn it" on it for my birthday, and people started asking, "Where can I get one of those shirts?" And I go, "This is the only one. I don't know. There's no shirt." So started, putting it on shirts, and now we have a whole, line of stuff that's out there: shirts and socks and all kinds of stuff just going around the world. We got it placed in a bunch of different stores, and it's been really weird for me to go. My first trip to like places like New Zealand and Australia, and people had "Damn It" shirts.
Awesome.
It was really fascinating. We played this show at the theater here in Los Angeles. I can't remember which theater it was now, but the photographer came and did a bunch of photos, and then we were sitting there looking at his iPad, and Slash was sitting there, and we were just kind of going through the iPad, like just swiping side to side, looking at photos, and he goes, "Hey, go back." And then the guy goes back a couple, and he goes, "Look at all the "Damn It" shirts in the audience." And I just I had to laugh. I go, at a Slash show, and there's like, I don't know, like a ton of like these people wearing "Damn It" shirts. It was like almost obnoxious, like as if I'd sort of like, like did it on purpose, like, "Hey, everybody wear your "Damn It" shirts." And I was like, wasn't really on purpose at all. I mean, people have been amazing. It's been an amazing ride for me to be able to kind of, we'd go and play somewhere, and then all of a sudden there'd be a Facebook page from Budapest or Russia or wherever, with my name on it. And it just never ceases to kind of make me kind of, it just blows your mind, because I come from a town of 1,500 people with no streetlights and no 7-Eleven. So to suddenly find yourself in, these crazy places, and the places aren't crazy. It's the fact that I'm there is crazy.
Right.
And having people kind of connect in whatever fashion with the guy playing bass and singing a couple songs during the night it's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, dude, your following is super loyal, man.
It's really overwhelming, frankly, and half the time I feel like just kind of going, "Oh, are you, like, really, guys?" Like, me?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I appreciate it, and it's like, I've always tried to be really, we're always, conspirators in general always really try to be cool with people, and really, we're just happy to be there. We just play music. It's really awesome that anybody gives a shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tracy goes, "Do you think the Golden Knights will win the cup?"
Dude, I don't know, but I am like super excited. And
amazing run, man! Like,
what a story, huh?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I know it's and the sad thing about it, I didn't even get to. I've been out of the city for so much this whole past year that I never even saw a game live. So
Wow.
It's been really it's been a real bummer for me, because I want so badly to go see the team, but I've been away like pretty much the whole year in some fashion or another. Then when I was home for Christmas, but I bought my father and my brother tickets to the Knights for Christmas. So I thought, I'll go another time, but you guys go see him.
Mm-hmm.
I never got to see him, but it's a hell of a story, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and the fascinating
Something
thing
else.
to me is it really is for a guy like me who came from Saskatchewan, where we never had a team. It's always been a little bit of a thing. Like, we've always been kind of mildly cut adrift. Like, you kind of don't have an NHL team. I love the Canucks because I lived there for so long. But it's been really weird. But to see it really bring that city to life, Las Vegas, I'm talking about, to sort of like, it wasn't that long ago that wasn't even a thing. That the idea of an NHL team would have just been like, "What are you talking about? Out here in the desert?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But now you see that logo everywhere. Like, literally, when you're in Vegas, you see it on cars, you see it in everybody's shirts, everybody's hats, and it's really an awesome thing to witness from the ground up. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to move to Vancouver and see the Vancouver Canucks, but they've always been there. For me, it's like the Canucks and basically every other team except for the more recent ones. But to see like the town of Vegas get its first pro team, like, they don't have a basketball team, baseball team, or football team. They'll have the Raiders in a couple of years, but they have locked on to these Knights. Like, I mean, of course, the Knights are performing, so that's a big part of it. They're a hell of a team. Who knew? It's just like, there's not a name on the team. Like when they got these guys, it was like they're completely. It's a complete reboot, a complete do-over. This is a whole new thing. We can just build it from scratch, and they just managed to have this amazing chemistry, and it's been really amazing to witness. Anyway, like for those of us. Like Kevin Churko, Corey's brother Kevin is a producer for like Five Finger Death Punch and all those bands. Disturbed. He's a massive. I mean, we're all of us that live in Vegas. There's a lot of us Canadians there too, but almost every friend that I have, the Five Finger Death Punch guys, everybody, we're all like just huge supporters of this team. It's
How couldn't
it's
you?
An amazing thing to witness.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so infectious. You know what I mean? Like, and it's been a really great feeling to have, especially as a guy who grew up in Canada. And to have that kind of like, because when you leave Canada, or when you're living abroad, hockey is something you have to seek out. You know what I mean? Like where in Canada, it's just hockey is a part of our life. It's just on all the time. It's on TV. It's everywhere. You go to the bar, it's on the TV. In the States, it's sort of tougher to find unless you're in like Detroit or Boston, places like that where hockey is a big thing. L.A. I remember we were in L.A. and a few years ago, and there was playoffs happening, and we were like, let's go watch the game. Go get something to eat and go watch the game. We went to this supposed sports bar, had like 50 TVs in the place, and they had every other possible sport except hockey on during the playoffs. The LA Kings were in the playoffs. I'm like, how could this possibly, you guys don't have the hockey game on? And they're like, oh no, I never thought of that. So we found some corner of the restaurant, and they put the hockey game on for us. I was like, really? Soccer, things that Americans don't usually care about anyway, like soccer, badminton, everything.
Right.
Playing, I'm like, really? Like, the hockey game.
It took the Canucks, I think, 30-some years to do what the Vegas Knights did in their first year, sweeping the first series. It's amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
It's mind blowing. And to be honest, I think most of us were just happy to have a great. Well, first of all, we were happy to have a team. Second of all, we were happy to have a great team. And then third of all, we were like thrilled to be in the playoffs at all. But to sweep the Kings, like it was like, what?
Like, okay.
I'm just beside myself. Like I'm kind of like, and it's funny because there's like, I love that there's a tweet for everything kind of thing where they're showing old tweets from when the Knights were first talked about to when the Knights first started to happen. And there's a lot of tweets that say stuff like, good luck with that, or that'll never work out. These guys have 3 seasons before they'll ever be in the playoffs, and you're like, wow, a lot of people are eating their words. But a lot of this is based on actual, proven knowledge that this is an absolute anomaly, that this team just came out of nowhere and is in the playoffs and swept the first round
against the Kings.
Against the Kings, who are, those guys are
they're a good team.
They're no joke.
Yeah. David has a real question here for you, man. Any lead vocals on the new Slash record?
No lead vocals. I mean, it's funny because people always ask me that question. I say, it's funny because I always refer to Dave Grohl when he was talking about. They would always ask him stuff like, "How come you didn't sing any songs in Nirvana?" And he goes, "Because Kurt Cobain was in Nirvana." It's like,
right.
So like with this, it's kind of like Miles Kennedy has always been the lead singer in this band. It's always been that way. He's amazing to be, and it's like I've been singing over the last week or so, 2 weeks or whatever, with him, as we put these songs together, and I come in and there's all kinds of like places where I am kind of like bellowing, pseudo lead vocals along with him here and there, or trade off things that we do here and there. But it's sort of he's the singer in the band. That's there's other places maybe the singer, either electric or my solo stuff or Took. That kind of stuff, this thing is Miles is the singer. That's just my gig is I show up and I support him and support the team.
Yep.
That's it.
I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
My sports analogy for you.
Support the team, yeah. Sylvia, and by the way, thank you again for doing this. 2 more questions.
No,
we'll get to the reason why, or I guess the main reason why you're joining us tonight. After Silvio's question, he says, "Hey Todd, I've got a question for Todd Kerns. If Todd can share any memorable moment of Jillian Hanna from a Vancouver band called The Flares. I know that he was helping out years ago when I ran into him at a Flares gig at Abbotsford. It's been 2 years now since she left us. Gone too soon. Thanks, Todd."
2 years, my God.
Right.
Jillian was the most amazing.
That.
Yeah, she was the most amazing guitar player, and it's funny because, you know, I've always been such an advocate of female musicians, and I've always thought it really strange that anybody ever thinks to themselves, that's a female guitar player, that's a male guitar player, or that's, you know what I mean? It's like, of course, we obviously notice that it is, but as the years go by, with Anita Strauss in Alice Cooper's band is on the cover of the most recent Guitar Player magazine and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've really seen this whole. It's becoming less and less as time goes by. But Jillian was one of those people that when I first saw her, she just joined. Static and Stereo was opening for. We had a tour with Biff Naked, and she had just joined Biff's band. I think she had initially started playing bass, but she eventually moved on to guitar, and it was like she was one of those guitar players that you were like, guy, girl, or otherwise, was like, damn, she was tearing it up, and especially back in those days, around the 90s and into the early 2000s, people weren't shredding for a while there. I don't know if anybody remembers this or not, but I do. That in the 80s, everybody shredded. Everybody was a shreddy guitar player. And then the 90s came along, and there wasn't so much of that. But Jillian picked up a guitar, and she could shred. She could tear it up.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's probably my biggest memory of her is regardless of, is just how great of a musician she was. Do you know what I mean? On top of the fact that she was an amazing person, she really was one of the most amazing people. And but she really, really was an immense talent. And it's funny when I mentioned Nita, Jillian under the right circumstances had every bit of chance of being a notable guitar player, as someone like Nita or anybody for that matter. You know what I mean? It's just, it's just unfortunate she never really got to express that in a much bigger way. But she really was the most wonderful person and such an amazing talent in general.
Mm-hmm. Last question is for Teresa, and she goes, my question, of course, I was 12,000 kilometers away, literally, when Took played Vancouver. When are you coming back? Which I guess this is as good a time as any to announce what we're going to be up to May 25 at the Railway Stage and Beer Cafe.
Well, the bigger question is, where's 12,000 miles away from
Vancouver? Exactly.
Yeah.
Let me type that back to it real quick here. Where the hell were you?
Yeah, were you on the moon?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, do you want to get into it now?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, so we talked, I guess it was a few months back now, about getting you back up to Vancouver to play an acoustic show, an in-conversation show. So I'll be hosting from stage. You agreed, I don't know what you were thinking, but you agreed for a 2-hour show with me, which is going to be fantastic. You and I sharing stories and stuff, but also, of course, taking questions from the audience. Which is one of my favorite things to do, actually. I love the interactive stuff. That doesn't happen enough, frankly. Right.
But when are we doing that? When are we doing that, Todd?
So that's May 25th, which is a Friday, the last Friday in May, and it's $8 in advance. Come on.
$8 in advance at the Railway Club.
$10
and you know what I just thought about?
Yeah.
You know what I just thought about as I was getting ready to get on the phone with you? It's probably 20 years ago, because it was about 98, maybe 99, when Kevin Kane from Graves of Wrath, whom we all love, had called me and said, hey man, I'm doing an acoustic thing over at the Railway Club. And it's going to be Tal Bachman and a bunch of cool people. And it was initially some sort of charity event for breast cancer, I believe, or violence against women. I can't remember what exactly it was, but we were all going to play songs by female artists. So I learned a Sheryl Crow song and a couple of, but that was the first time I ever played an acoustic show, was on that stage about 20 years ago. So I thought wasn't that weird? Like, what a weird turn of events that is. And I was like, I've played that place a million times in my life, but it was the first time I stood up on stage with an acoustic guitar by myself. And because I remember when I hung up the phone after talking to Kevin, I was like, that sounds like fun. And I hung up the phone and I go, wait a second, I've never done this before. I've never played the acoustic guitar by myself and sang songs in front of people. I usually play with a loud rock band, like a sane person. Is it harder to play a show like that, to just have a guitar and that's it? I love it, actually, personally. I mean, I've been doing it for years now. Like, I started back then. I mean, I think Kevin was the one that sort of prodded me to do so, and the Railway Club was, was the place that prodded me to do so. And I sort of remained doing that ever since. I've always done it. I even released an album in 2013 called Borrowing Trouble that was predominantly an acoustic thing, and I've done multiple acoustic tours and acoustic shows over the years it's some of my favorite stuff to do is just go by myself, and especially when it's interactive like you're going to do is really fun. Questions and requests and get off the stage and stuff. You suck.
Yes, exactly. Too many of those. Get out of here, heckler. Awesome.
Well, yeah, May 25th at the Railway. I can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. I'm always happy. I love going back to Vancouver, man. It's like, I've never ever really considered it that I don't live there. It's just that I also live here. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Vancouver is still home when I go back. And that's what was so cool about doing the Railway with Took, was it's like, we're at the Railway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's
playing for
like
some
one of the last
and stuff.
Other than the Commodore, it's one of the last ones from back in the day still around. Venues.
Yeah, unless you clump the Red Room into that, I guess, or the Rickshaw.
Sure, Red Room, yeah, sure, Rickshaw, yeah, absolutely.
But
there's certainly a few
going away.
But that's just the the nature of time. Just things come, things go. That's the way it goes. But the Railway Club is a legendary spot.
Absolutely. May 25. Todd, we will see you online, and we'll see you in Vancouver soon.
Subscribe on iTunes at Toddcast Podcast.